welcome back to another video. Today's video is a list video. Now, in my last list video, I talked about my top 10 favorite vampire movies, and I mentioned maybe doing one about vampire TV shows. This video is not that. I will be doing a list of my fave vampire shows, but since it's October, finally, I'm going to be doing a list of my favorite nostalgic Halloween movies. Now, these are nostalgic for me. They might not be nostalgic for you. You might think they're awesome. You might think they suck. This is just my opinion. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about some nostalgic Halloween movies. Number 10 is Spooky House from 2002. Spooky House is just one of those movies that I saw as a kid. I think we had it on DVD, and I fell in love with it. Its budget's not very high. The acting is subpar at times. The effects, it depends on the moment, but the storyline is quite interesting. Starts out with this magician who has a wife that is his assistant, and she really wants kids, like wants to be a mom, just wants children, and he told her, because he grew up in an orphanage, that he doesn't want kids, he doesn't like kids, right? So the last thing he says to his wife is, I hate kids. And they're doing this trick where she's supposed to be in a star. It explodes, and she's supposed to appear in the earth, basically teleport, right? So the star explodes, but she does not appear in the globe. She just disappears. She disappears for 11 years. He gives up on being a magician. He becomes a recluse and has a black panther as a pet. Really iconic. Now, he just grows to basically hate everybody, and everybody's scared of him. There's a group of kids, the main characters, and one of them's name is Max. Now, Max is just he's so small. But he is an orphan, and he's going to be sent to an orphanage after Halloween. So he's just really sad about it. I think there's one line in the movie where he basically says he has nothing to live for, and I was like, dude, you're a child. Don't ever say that. But basically, they interact with the magician, and Max just becomes intrigued by him. So much so that he's like, you know, you could adopt me, dude. Like, we could figure this out. And the magician guy doesn't really want to accept it. You know, he's just like, I don't know. Meh, meh, meh. But at the end of the movie, he does a magic show that he hasn't done in 11 years for Max and the public. And at the show, he announces that he is adopting Max, that Max is now his son. Then they do this trick with two rockets. One's red, one's blue. Max goes in one, and the panther goes in the other. They spin around and around. Max comes out of the opposite rocket that he went into, and instead of the panther coming out of the other one, it's his wife. And they become a big old happy family again. Is it the best Halloween movie out there? No. It was filmed in 98, didn't come out till 2002, and its budget's low. I'm guessing it went straight to DVD, but I don't know. The special effects aren't too bad, like for 1998 when it was filmed, not bad. And it's just enjoyable watch. I mean, I haven't seen that movie in a while, and I just rewatched it recently, and I was like, oh, okay. It was a little weirder than I remember it being, but I had a good time, and that's what really matters. Number 9 is Monster House from 2006. Monster House's animation, it's not that good. There's, like, little errors throughout the movie. Like one scene my brother pointed out near the beginning where a tree has no branches, just floating leaves. And the basic story is that this boy lives across the street from a haunted house, or there's this cranky old man who lives in this house who, if you step on his lawn, he tears you a new one, right? And he does this to a little girl, and he has a heart attack, right? And then it's revealed throughout the movie that the house is possessed. Like, it actually, like, it moves and it breathes, and it's just creepy as shit. And by the end of the movie, you realize that it is possessed by the old man's wife. They were building the house, and she fell and died, and she became cemented in the basement, which is just creepy. So creepy, right? And she became very possessive of the old man, and the old man of her, and eventually the old man realizes this is unhealthy, and the house comes to life, rips off the foundations, and, like, chases them around town, which if I looked out my window and saw a house chasing some children, I would be scared. And eventually the house is destroyed, and the old man is free. And all of the people that the house attacked are okay. They're alive. And everyone's okay. But it's just the idea of this house is possessed. And this movie is a lot creepier than, like, it first lets on. And if you really, like, think about, like, this house is possessed by his dead wife who is in the basement. And, like, it comes to life and tries to eat people. It's scary. Now, I'm not a horror movie fan, like, in the slightest, and I would not consider this movie a horror movie. It's just a little creepy. And especially when you figure out that Constance is possessing this house, it's like, what the hell? Well, overall, it's not really that bad of a movie. I mean, animation-wise, for 2006, it probably was pretty good. Nowadays, you watch it and you're like, oh my god. But it's 2006. And obviously, I don't know how long this movie took to make, but early 2000s. You can't expect, you know, grand animation in the, 2006, especially if their budget wasn't very high. But if you haven't seen Monster House, I highly recommend because the storyline is quite interesting and it's just pretty good. Number 8 is Coraline from 2009. Now, Coraline is a claymation stop motion, I believe made by Tim Burton. And Coraline is just also a very interesting story, and this one's just really creepy. You know, this girl moves to a house in the middle of nowhere with her mom and dad. Her mom and dad are very distant, always working, never really paying attention to her. And then she finds this little door that takes her to another world where she has a other mother and other father who care for her, want to, make the garden beautiful and make her dinner and play with her. But it's toxic and dark and creepy because his mother just wants to steal her eyes and keep her with her forever, which she's done with multiple other children. And Coraline fights back, and other mother turns into this creepy spider thing, which is really just gross. Her parents get kidnapped, but in the end, she saves her parents, and she comes out on top. That we know of. Coraline was one of those movies, it came out when I was 8, so I don't remember if I saw it right when it came out or a few years later, but claymation has always, been intriguing to me. One of my favorite movies of all time is Nightmare Before Christmas, which is claymation, and Corpse Bride is awesome, and Coraline. I love that type of style. Those movies take forever to make, but I've always been a fan of handmade, someone put a lot of work into it, which is why I love 1980s special effects, because someone had to hand make the effects. So claymation is a similar thing where they have to move each character little by little just to get them to walk across the screen. And it's a lot of work, but it can be really, really cool by the end of it. And Coraline is one of those movies that keeps you captivated, and it's just very fun. Number 7 is Practical Magic from 1998. This is a live-action movie with Sandra Bullock, which she looks like a baby in this movie. I was like, oh my god. Now, this movie came out before I was born, and I actually only saw this recently. In the last year or so, I had never seen Practical Magic. I had heard people talk about it, but I never actually sat down to watch it. So I gave it a watch, and let me tell you, it's really good. Now, there are some moments that are just kind of but the story is interesting. It's a family of witches who are cursed that if they fall in love, the man or woman dies. Every time. The second they fall in love, they die. Hit by a car, drown, you name it. Doesn't matter. They die. And it starts out with these sisters. And one sister finally falls in love, has 2 kids, settles down. The other one's a party girl and goes off and, finds love in a different way. However, Sandra's love was fabricated. These aunts are a little out of the box. And they use a spell to help Sandra fall in love. However, it ends poorly. And when Sandra was a little girl, she wished for the perfect partner. A boy who liked stars, who had one green eye, one blue eye. She was doing this because she believed this man never existed. She didn't really want to fall in love because she knew of the curse. Her dad had died, and then her mother killed herself out of a broken heart. Or died of a broken heart. And this continues repeatedly throughout her family. So now her husband is dead, and she's just really sad about it. And her sister falls in love with this guy who's very toxic and abusive, and it ends up that he dies. Now the sister, out of, not a really good place, decides, hey, let's bring him back to life. Don't do that. He comes back aggressively and just evil. They kill him again and they bury him in the garden. Now the issue with that is that a rose bush grows on top of him, and he isn't really leaving. He's kind of just causing problems. And a cop comes to town looking for him, which causes more problems. Now this cop grows quite close to Sandra, and they start falling in love with each other. Now in the end, the guy that they had killed becomes a ghost and possesses Sandra's sister, and there has to be like an exorcism to get him out of her. And luckily it ends with a happy ending. Everybody's okay. The cop and Sandra fall in love because he has one green eye and one blue eye, and everyone's okay. And the movie ends with all the witches jumping off the roof and floating down into the ground, which is awesome. And what I like about this movie is that obviously it's about witches, but the magic is not like the main... Well, it is like the main point, but it's not over dramatic. There's not sparkles and spells shooting out of their hands and stuff like that. It's like Sandra blows on a candle and it lights on fire. And there's simple like spell work, but it's not overproduced. It's not in your face. It's more subdued, which I like, because a lot of movies about witchcraft, they overdo it. And I think this one was really nice because it was lax. Like, they were witches, but it wasn't like in your face, we're witches, And I don't know, I just like the soundtrack and the story, and very good. Number 6 is Halloween Town from 1998. I love Halloween Town. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is okay because they replace Marnie, and I do not like when they replace main actors. But the original 3 Halloween Towns are literally awesome. They are also witches. It's a family of witches, but the mom's like, I don't really want you to be dealing with witchcraft or anything like that. We're not going to do that. However, their grandma is from Halloween Town, and the kids follow her to Halloween Town, where monsters live in harmony. However, there is a bad guy trying to mess with this order, and it turns out that he freezes Grandma and Mom, and the kids have to save the day. And throughout the 3 movies, they grow more into their powers, and the brother doesn't really want to do magic stuff. He's like, nah, I'm good. You guys have fun over there. But they grow into their powers. Marnie falls in love with a bad guy who she, in real life, eventually married, which is awesome. And they, go through all these adventures. And the 3rd one, it's like they have monsters come into the real world and go to high school. They have their own secret room, and it's quite awesome. And I was going to put, like, the 3 movies on this list, but I decided to put it into one. I love all 3 Halloween Town movies. I have seen the 4th one. It's okay. But because they replaced Marnie, it's like, it just doesn't feel the same, and I just didn't like it as much as the first 3. And I would probably say the first one is definitely my favorite. When it comes to series of movies, usually the first one is my favorite, but the 3rd one's pretty good, and I don't mind the 2nd one either. Like, I literally had no issue with any of them. Of course, they were, 90s, early 2000s movies, but it's nostalgic for me, and I don't know. Every Halloween, I watch Halloween Town. Sometimes I watch all 3 in one sitting, but I don't know, just the vibe. I wish I could live in Halloween Town, because autumn is literally my favorite season, and I've been wanting it to be autumn since May. Luckily, it's now autumn. Thank God. But I just love the vibes of autumn. The drinks, the decorations, Halloween, dressing up, the trees. Oh, the pretty trees. They're my favorite. If I could live in Halloween Town, that would literally be the dream. Obviously, it's not real, but we can dream. If Halloween Town was real, I would move there in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even hesitate. Number 5 is The Addams Family from 1991. I love The Addams Family in every iteration. I love the 2 movies from the 90s, though. Just the whole cast is just... They did a really good job at casting these characters, and I love it. Obviously, the original Addams Family is pretty funny if you give it a chance. And the animated movies are not that bad either. In every iteration of the Addams Family, I usually find something that I like about them. I have cosplayed Morticia and Wednesday more times than I can count. But the 1991 movie, there's just the vibes and the aesthetic and the acting, and it's just, my God. And Morticia and Gomez, those two are so cute. And if you look into the backstory of the actors who play Morticia and Gomez, it's even more like, it's tragic, but it's so cute. I would highly recommend looking up like the backstory of that. Oh my God. But I love that movie. I love the idea of a family who's a little off. You know, they all wear black. They live in a creepy house. They cut roses off. They cut the flowers right off. You know, they're basically like Halloween family if it was a family. You know, if Halloween was a person, it would be this family. And it's like the Munsters. I also like the Munsters, but that one's full of actual monsters. The Addams Family, as far as I'm aware, are human. They're just different and Halloween lovers, and they love the occult and spooky, and just, I love them. I love their interactions with one another. I love the story of it. And the second one is also really good. I love that one as well. But the original Addams Family is just my favorite. Number 4 is Casper from 1995. The live-action Casper is so good. So good. And I just realized that both the Addams Family and Casper have the same actress in it. So, there's that. But Casper is this, you know, this father and daughter move into this house that's possessed by ghosts. 3 ghosts that just kind of suck. They throw food on the floor, they mess things up, they just kind of cause problems. And then 1 ghost who's named Casper. Now, Casper's story is so sad. His dad was like an inventor, and he wanted to go out sledding one day, and his father said no, but he went out anyway, and he didn't come home. So Casper was stuck in the house, but his father had made a machine to, like, bring the ghost back to the human world and allow him to, like, come back. However, something happens to the main girl's dad, and he dies. So they used the last of the serum that his father had created to save her father rather than him. And because of this, his wife, the girl's mom, who's like an angel or something, brings Casper back for a few hours as a human boy so he can go to the Halloween party and dance with her, which is so cute. It's like, oh my God. But he's a ghost, so that would never work out, but it's still pretty cute. And just, the movie's like very aesthetically Halloween. It's just, you know, I love the vibes the movie gives off and the characters. Some are likable, some you hate to your core, like the bad guys. They're just generally suck, which is good because some bad guys, you know, you want to generally suck. And it's just, the vibes are immaculate, and I love Casper. And obviously, there's many iterations of Casper, animated and not, but this movie is just, I don't know. I just love this movie. Number 3 is Hocus Pocus from 1993. I love the original Hocus Pocus. Just love it. A lot of these nostalgic Halloween movies for me are vibe. They pass the vibe check. You know, they give off the Halloween vibes. They're not scary. They're more of just like spooky, but autumny and Halloweeny, and just, you know, just really good. And I noticed a lot of these have witches in it. I don't know why. But Hocus Pocus, like, the idea of, like, these 3 witches trying to stay young forever, is just, like, an interesting story, and it's, you know, it's got some serious moments, but a lot of it is just silly and campy, and just the vibes are awesome. You know, they kidnap this little girl, her brother goes to save her and becomes a cat. Then many years later, after they are executed, these kids go back to the house, they light the candle, because they're dumb, and then the witches are back. They try to kill Max's sister all over again. Max tries to sacrifice himself to save his sister, but in the end, the 3 witches are defeated. Now, there is a sequel to this movie, which is not terrible. I do have an issue when the original movie and the sequel are many, many years apart, because usually that means they're not as good. I didn't mind the second Hocus Pocus. It wasn't as good, I think, because it was newer. You know, it didn't have the same aesthetic as a 1993 movie, which obviously got better cameras, better effects, better this, you know, different cast, you name it. Obviously, the Witches looked older, you know, but it's like the Beetlejuice sequel. It wasn't perfect, but I loved it regardless. And it was the same with the Hocus Pocus sequel. I thought it was good. Was it great? No, it was not perfect, but I had a good time watching, and I just like the idea of it. I know a lot of people like Hocus Pocus, like it's one of those movies everybody talks about, like Halloween, Hocus Pocus, but it's just good. It's just awesome. I've cosplayed one of the Sanderson sisters, and I hope to cosplay all three at some point or another, and you know, just the acting and the vibes and the aesthetic. And I love 80s, 90s, early 2000s vibes because the camera work is not the best because, you know, cameras are not the high-end quality we have now. And the special effects, some of them are handmade, some of them are clearly, like, not good. But that's what makes them interesting and fun. And they're not perfect pieces of art. And that's why I love them, because they're not perfect. And I just have a good time watching. Number 2, speaking of bad animation, is Scary Godmother's Halloween Spooktacular from 2003. The animation is subpar, but it's so good. There are 2 of these movies. I believe they were direct-to-video movies, and they are awesome. They're based, I believe, off some books, and they have, like, you know, like, there's even a doll that I think is a lot of money. But there's a doll based off of Scary Godmother, and it's not like the most popular thing ever. Like, I'll bring up Scary Godmother. Not a lot of people know who I'm talking about, but some do. And it's the idea that this little girl is trick-or-treating with, you know, some older kids, and they lock her in the spooky house. You know, the house that every movie has that's haunted and abandoned and stuff like that. They lock her in there. She starts crying, and she meets her Scary Godmother, which is basically just her Halloween godmother. And, Scary Godmother takes her to the Halloween world where they have a party with a skeleton and a monster that hides under the bed and a family of vampires and Harry the werewolf, he is so, like, annoying but hilarious at the same time. And all the characters have their own unique personalities, and, you know, it's a lot of fun. And the soundtrack at the party when they're dancing is so good. I jam out to that song consistently. And the second movie goes more on Jimmy. I believe that's her cousin or I think it's cousin. They're related in some way. He wants to ruin Halloween for everybody, which is destroying Halloween Town because people aren't, like, excited about Halloween and, you know, they're not celebrating it. So Halloween, you know, the world is, like, collapsing in on itself. But in the end, you know, he realizes his mistakes in a way, and Halloween is saved, and they have a dance party. And of course, I love the vampire family the most because I'm a giant fan of vampires, but Scary Godmother, I just wish I had one. The number 1 on my list is Nightmare Before Christmas. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. I have for many years. The claymation is amazing. It's Tim Burton, which I love Tim Burton. The storyline is interesting. The acting is interesting. Plus, Jack is voiced by Chris Sarandon, who played Jerry in Fright Night. So, of course, I'm going to have a little bias when it comes to Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, I liked that movie before I found out Chris voiced Jack. And then when I found out he did voice Jack, I liked it even more. I have I wouldn't say shrine. I have a collection of Nightmare Before Christmas things. A lot of things. I have stuffed animals. I have clothes. I have cosplays. I have knickknacks. I have a clock. I have a countdown to Halloween/Christmas. I have, you name it, I got Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. Now, a lot of this stuff is because my parents know that I like Nightmare Before Christmas, and they've decided that if they don't know what to get me for a gift, they get me something from Nightmare Before Christmas, which is fine because I do like that movie, but sometimes it's like, you know, you could give me something else. But Nightmare Before Christmas is just the idea of this town that always does Halloween. That's what they're good at. That's what they do. But it gets boring, you know, if you're doing the same thing. So Jack decides that he wants to try Christmas. However, it doesn't go very well because it's not, you know, that's not his holiday.
And then he realizes in the end that Christmas is for Santa and he'll stick to Halloween. And he falls in love with Sally, and it's so cute. And I've cosplayed Jack and Sally many a times. I've also cosplayed the trick-or-treaters from Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm hoping to cosplay the mayor at some point and many of the other characters. I usually stick to Jack and Sally because, well, they're most recognizable, and I just love them so much. But I'm hoping to diversify my cosplays within the Nightmare Before Christmas universe. It's every movie. Like, all my favorite movies, I always cosplay, like, certain characters, but I'm trying to, like, go out and try and cosplay more than just, one or two. But we'll see if I actually do that. I love Halloween movies that are not scary, so not horror movies, but they're so Halloween-y, and just so, like, the vibes are there. A lot of my favorite nostalgic Halloween movies are just very Halloween vibes, the trees are beautiful, the coloring is awesome, the stories are cool, the effects are usually handmade, if not, they're not high-end quality, like, oh my god, amazing. But that's what makes them more interesting, in my opinion. I'm not saying that every movie that has that is good, but these, in my opinion, are. Now, there are a few other Halloween movies that I did think about putting on this list. A lot of them are Disney Channel original movies or Nickelodeon or like that vibe. But this list would get very long if I did that. So these are the ones that came to mind first, ones I've watched on multiple occasions, comfort movies, if you will. They're very nostalgic for me. Comment down below if you have any nostalgic Halloween movies that you like to watch every Halloween. Maybe you share some with me. Maybe there's different ones. Maybe there's ones I didn't even think about. I'm like, oh yeah, that is a comfort movie for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Next week, I'm going to be doing something that I'm really excited about, or we're going to try to do something I'm really excited about. I have this idea, and I think it's going to be really fun. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fun. Regardless of how I do it or what I do, it's going to be fun. Alright guys, I will see you next week with another one. Have a very spooky day. Ooh.